The 1960s launched us into a new era of cinematic imagination, bringing audiences everything from mutant insectoids to time-traveling Victorians. While classics like 2001, A Space Odyssey, and Planet of the Apes get all the glory, dozens of revolutionary sci-fi gems remain hidden in the shadow of these giants. Ready to discover the forgotten masterpieces that pioneered techniques still used today? Strap in as we count down the most overlooked 1960s sci-fi films that deserve your attention right now. First Men in the Moon, 1964. Long before Armstrong took his giant leap, this H.G. Wells adaptation asked what would happen if Victorians reached the lunar surface first. Using a brilliant framing device where Apollo astronauts discover a British flag already planted on the moon, the film flashes back to 1899 when an eccentric inventor creates cavorite, an anti-gravity substance that propels a brass spaceship to our satellite. The real stars here are Ray Harryhausen's stop-motion lunar creatures, giant caterpillar-like insectoids dwelling in crystal caves beneath the surface. The technical achievements were revolutionary, with Harryhausen personally animating every frame of the moon beasts in meticulous detail. Critics initially dismissed it as children's entertainment, but the film's influence is undeniable. James Cameron cited the lunar landscape sequences as direct inspiration for Avatar's bioluminescent forests. Shot for just $900,000, the film's practical effects still hold up remarkably well against today's CGI spectacles. Ever notice how nearly every First Contact movie follows similar beats? They all owe a debt to this Victorian space adventure that got there first. Planet of the Vampires, 1965. Mario Bava's stylish space nightmare has been quietly influencing sci-fi horror for decades without getting proper credit. Two spaceships respond to a distress signal on an unexplored planet, only to find their crews suddenly possessed by an urge to murder each other. The survivors later discover the remains of giant alien skeletons and a derelict spacecraft. Sound familiar? That's because Ridley Scott's Alien borrowed heavily from this template. The astronauts wear these incredible high-collared leather spacesuits that would look perfectly at home on a modern runway, while Bava creates alien landscapes using nothing but colored lights, fog machines, and painted backdrops. What's truly impressive is how Bava conjured such atmospheric dread on a budget that wouldn't cover craft services on today's films. The Italian director shot the entire movie in just 3 weeks, using fluorescent paint and black light to create eerie alien environments. Film critic Tim Lucas called it the missing link between Forbidden Planet and Alien, high praise for a film initially dismissed as B-movie schlock when it premiered at Venice Film Festival. Seconds, 1966. Rock Hudson delivers the performance of his career in this unsettling masterpiece from director John Frankenheimer. A middle-aged banker undergoes a radical procedure from a secretive organization that fakes his death, reconstructs his appearance, and gives him a new identity as a successful artist, only to discover his perfect new life is another kind of prison. The film's disorienting cinematography by James Wong Howe, using fisheye lenses and skewed angles, creates a permanent state of psychological unease. One infamous beach party sequence features actual nudity, filmed with hidden cameras capturing real hippies who didn't know they were in a Hollywood production. Paramount executives reportedly hated Seconds so much they buried its release, leading to commercial failure. The film was booed at Cannes, but later influenced everything from Face Off to Get Out. Hudson, desperate to break from his romantic comedy image, took the role against his agent's advice, and later called it the most challenging performance of his life. Criterion Collection rescued this forgotten gem from obscurity, cementing its status as the most disturbing identity crisis ever committed to film. Fantastic Voyage, 1966. Before Inner Space or The Magic School Bus, this groundbreaking adventure miniaturized scientists and sent them inside a human body to save a diplomat's life. The crew pilots a microscopic submarine through the circulatory system, fighting white blood cells and navigating the brain's electrical storms while racing against a 60-minute deadline before they return to normal size. The film's innovative special effects won 2 Academy Awards and influenced medical visualization for decades. Production designers created massive, pulsating set pieces representing human organs, with the arterial sequences requiring over 8,000 gallons of red-tinted liquid pumped through transparent tubes. Science fiction legend Isaac Asimov was hired to write the novelization before filming finished and ended up fixing numerous scientific problems in the screenplay. When his book released before the movie, audiences thought the film was based on his novel. Director Richard Fleischer insisted on medical accuracy, bringing in cardiovascular specialists as consultants. Their attention to detail was so precise that medical schools reportedly used clips to demonstrate circulatory function to students throughout the 1970s. Robinson Crusoe on Mars, 1964. This brilliant planetary survival story stands as one of the most scientifically ambitious pre-Apollo space films ever made. When astronaut Kit Draper crash lands on the Martian surface with only a monkey companion, he must find oxygen, water, and shelter to stay alive on the hostile planet. Shot primarily in Death Valley with stunning orange-filtered cinematography, the film creates a convincingly alien landscape years before we had actual Mars photographs. The production team consulted with NASA scientists to ensure plausibility. The scene where Draper extracts oxygen from Martian rocks actually anticipated a real process later developed for potential Mars missions. Star Paul Mantee endured brutal filming conditions, performing most stunts himself in a functional but stifling spacesuit, while temperatures soared to 120 degrees. Director Byron Haskin, who helmed War of the Worlds, insisted on practical effects throughout, building functional rover vehicles and alien spacecraft rather than relying on miniatures. The film was a commercial disappointment, but gained a cult following among scientists and astronauts. Apollo 12 Commander Pete Conrad reportedly kept a copy at NASA and screened it during training sessions as a worst-case scenario exercise. Quatermass and the Pit, 1967. Released in America as 5 Million Years to Earth, this British chiller reveals an ancient Martian spacecraft buried beneath London, containing the fossilized remains of insect-like aliens. As scientists investigate, they discover the aliens genetically engineered early humans, explaining psychic abilities and race memory of horned devils. The climax features one of cinema's most ambitious supernatural sequences, with a giant translucent Martian manifestation hovering over London as mass hysteria erupts below. This apocalyptic scene was accomplished through practical effects and double exposure, no CGI needed. Hammer Films produced this intellectual horror on a modest £275,000 budget, yet created sequences that still unsettle viewers today. Director Roy Ward Baker later revealed the BBC initially refused to let them adapt the television serial, calling it too frightening for cinema audiences. The film's exploration of ancient aliens influencing human evolution predated von Däniken's Chariots of the Gods by a year, launching countless pseudoscientific theories. John Carpenter cited it as direct inspiration for Prince of Darkness, while the Martian ghost effect influenced Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark's face-melting finale. X, The Man with Xray Eyes, 1963. Roger Corman delivers his masterpiece with this nightmarish examination of scientific hubris. Ray Milland plays Dr. James Xavier, who develops eye drops granting him X-ray vision. Initially useful for medical diagnosis, his vision soon penetrates deeper layers of reality, driving him toward madness as he sees through walls, clothes, flesh, and eventually the very fabric of the universe. The film's visual effects were revolutionary for their time. Corman achieved the X-ray vision sequences by painting veins on nude models, then filming through diffraction lenses. For the climactic scene where Xavier sees beyond reality, Corman shot through prisms and specially constructed kaleidoscopes. Milland, an Oscar winner, took the low-budget role because he was fascinated by the concept. He performed most scenes wearing painful custom contact lenses that severely limited his vision, adding to his character's disorientation. The actor later claimed he suffered temporary vision problems for months after filming. An urban legend persists that the film originally ended with Xavier screaming, "I can see God," before tearing out his eyes, but conservative studio executives demanded the line be cut. Corman has neither confirmed nor denied this, adding to the film's mystique. La Jette, 1962. This 28-minute French masterpiece, told entirely through still photographs, would later inspire Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys. In post-apocalyptic Paris, scientists send a prisoner back in time to prevent World War III. The time traveler falls in love with a woman from the past, but is haunted by a childhood memory of witnessing a man's death at an airport jetty. Director Chris Marker created this landmark film with a photo camera and virtually no budget. The famous sequence where the sleeping woman briefly comes to life, the only moving image in the film, was shot with a borrowed movie camera during a lunch break. The film's influence extends far beyond Gilliam's remake. David Bowie's Jump They Say music video directly references it, and the entire photo-roman, photo-novel technique, pioneered by Marker, influenced countless music videos and commercials. The Museum of Modern Art permanently added La Jetée to its collection, calling it one of the most influential science fiction films ever made. Its circular time paradox storyline established tropes still used in everything from Looper to Interstellar. Barbarella, 1968. Jane Fonda's Space Odyssey is far more than the campy skin flick its reputation suggests. This psychedelic adventure follows a female astronaut in a future where Earth has abolished violence and war, sent to locate a missing scientist with a dangerous weapon called the positronic ray. The film's production design deserves a place in art history. Legendary set designer Mario Garbuglia created over 80 elaborate environments representing different planets, each with distinct architectural styles. The famous excessive machine, a deadly organ that kills through pleasure, required 3 months to build and actually played the film's theme song. Director Roger Vadim spent nearly a third of the $9 million budget on costumes alone, with Paco Rabanne designing Fonda's iconic outfits using actual metal and plastic materials rather than fabric. The opening zero-gravity striptease sequence required Fonda to be suspended by nearly invisible wires, while a technician slowly removed individual letters of the title sequence. Though initially panned, the film later gained cult status and influenced everything from The Fifth Element to Ariana Grande's Break Free music video. Duran Duran even named their band after the film's villain, played by Milo O'Shea. Alphaville, 1965. Jean-Luc Godard's noir-tinged science fiction follows secret agent Lemmy Caution as he infiltrates Alphaville, a dystopian city ruled by a sentient computer called Alpha 60 that has outlawed emotion and individualism. Using no special effects or futuristic sets, Godard filmed entirely in contemporary Paris at night, creating an alien environment from existing architecture. The director's genius was recognizing that modern glass and steel buildings already looked sufficiently alienating. The film's most unsettling scene involves citizens being executed for showing emotion by being forced to dive into a swimming pool while party guests applaud politely. American actor Eddie Constantine reprises his popular Lemmy Caution character from French detective films, creating jarring cognitive dissonance as this familiar noir hero navigates a world where words like conscience and love are being systematically deleted from the dictionary. Godard reportedly never told studio executives he was making science fiction, pitching it as another Lemmy Caution detective story. The film won the Golden Bear at the Berlin Film Festival, despite polarizing audiences. Its influence is evident in everything from Blade Runner to Her, proving that sometimes the most effective vision of the future is simply our present viewed through a different lens. The Day the Earth Caught Fire, 1961. This apocalyptic British drama presents perhaps the most realistic end-of-the-world scenario of its era. When simultaneous nuclear tests by the US and USSR knock Earth off its axis and send it spiraling toward the sun, London newspaper reporters track the rapidly escalating global catastrophe while facing their own personal demons. Director Val Guest shot on location in actual Fleet Street newsrooms using real journalists as extras and authentic newspaper printing presses. To create London's heat wave sequences, Guest used special yellow filters and actually spray-painted Trafalgar Square to give it a scorched appearance, without city permission. The film's famous ending was revolutionary. 2 different newspaper headlines, "World Saved" and "World Doomed," are prepared, but we never learn which one goes to press. Cinema owners reported audience members returning multiple times, convinced they'd seen different endings. Critics praised its documentary-style realism, with The Guardian calling it the most terrifying film of its time. The British Film Institute later preserved it in the National Film Archive as culturally significant. Scientists have since confirmed the premise is technically possible, making this not just compelling drama, but a disturbing thought experiment. 12th Fahrenheit 451, 1966. Francois Truffaut's only English-language film adapts Ray Bradbury's classic novel about a future where books are banned and firemen burn any they find. When fireman Montag meets book-loving Clarice, he questions his society and eventually joins the resistance, people who memorize entire books to preserve them. In a brilliant casting decision, Julie Christie plays both Montag's conformist wife and the rebellious Clarice, visually representing his internal conflict. The film's opening is purely visual with no dialogue. Credits are spoken rather than shown, immersing viewers in a world where reading is forbidden. Truffaut, who didn't speak English, communicated with the cast through an interpreter and often clashed with star Oscar Werner. Their relationship deteriorated so badly that Werner deliberately styled his hair differently for the final scene out of spite, creating a continuity error. Bernard Herrmann's haunting score contains no percussion instruments, only strings, to create what he called a world without pleasure. The film's influence extends beyond cinema. The real-life book-memorizing movement, the People's Library, was directly inspired by the film's Book People resistance. 13. The Last Man on Earth, 1964. Before The Omega Man, or I Am Legend, Vincent Price starred in this atmospheric Italian-American adaptation of Richard Matheson's novel. As the sole survivor of a plague that turns victims into vampire-like creatures, Dr. Robert Morgan spends his days hunting, sleeping infected, and his nights barricaded against their attacks. Shot in black and white on the desolate outskirts of Rome, the film creates a haunting emptiness through wide shots of abandoned streets and minimal musical score. The scene where Morgan methodically stakes his own reanimated wife remains one of horror cinema's most devastating moments. Matheson himself wrote the screenplay under a pseudonym, but disowned the final film after producers made significant changes. Despite this, George Romero openly acknowledged it as direct inspiration for Night of the Living Dead, essentially creating the modern zombie genre. The film's production was troubled. Italian and American crews fought constantly, and Price later recalled the set as the most miserable experience of my career. Despite these challenges, his nuanced performance as a man clinging to sanity amid unimaginable isolation delivers emotional depth rarely seen in horror films of this era. 14th Voyage to the End of the Universe, 1963. This Czechoslovakian masterpiece, original title, Ikari XB1, follows the crew of a starship on a 15-year journey to investigate life in the Alpha Centauri system. Decades before Star Trek, this film realistically portrayed the psychological challenges of long-duration space missions and featured a multinational crew working together peacefully. The film's production design was astonishingly advanced. The spaceship interiors feature minimalist white environments, touchscreen computers, and automated doors that would look at home in productions made decades later. Director Jindřich Polák consulted with actual astronomers to ensure scientific accuracy, resulting in one of the first films to correctly depict weightlessness and space physics. Stanley Kubrick reportedly screened this film multiple times during pre-production of 2001, A Space Odyssey, borrowing several visual concepts. The American release was heavily edited, with nearly 30 minutes cut, and an altered ending implying the entire crew dies. The film's anti-nuclear message, the crew encounters a derelict ship whose occupants died from radiation poisoning, was particularly bold during the height of Cold War tensions. In 2016, the film was digitally restored and screened at Cannes, finally receiving international recognition as a pioneering work of hard science fiction. 15. The Incredible Shrinking Man, 1957. While technically from the late 50s, this philosophical masterpiece's influence on 60s sci-fi makes it impossible to exclude. After passing through a radioactive fog, Scott Carey begins shrinking inexorably toward the microscopic. The film follows his struggle to survive in an increasingly oversized world, culminating in battles with a spider and water droplets that become epic in scale. Director Jack Arnold achieved the shrinking effects through oversized props and forced perspective, creating a convincingly threatening world from ordinary household objects. The basement set alone cost over $100,000, with multiple versions built at different scales to accommodate the character's continuing diminishment. The existential finale transcends typical 50s sci-fi fare. Rather than being rescued, Scott continues shrinking toward infinity, embracing his fate with a profound monologue about finding meaning in the cosmic order. This ending was considered so controversial that Universal executives attempted to force a happy conclusion where he stops shrinking. Author Richard Matheson insisted on writing the screenplay adaptation of his own novel, fighting studio interference to maintain its philosophical core. The film received the Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation and was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. 16. The Tenth Victim, 1965. This stylish Italian satire presents a future where legalized hunting of humans has replaced war as a means of population control and entertainment. Participants in The Big Hunt must survive 10 rounds as both hunter and hunted, with the final survivor winning fame and fortune. When American champion Caroline Meredith targets Italian veteran Marcello Mastroianni, their mutual attraction complicates their deadly game. Director Elio Petri created a pop art vision of the future using existing modernist architecture in Rome and elaborate mod fashions. The infamous Death by Mannequin sequence features a fashion show where models wear weaponized clothing, culminating in Andrus's character using a rifle bra that fires bullets from gold-plated nipples. The film's satirical take on reality television and commercialized violence proved remarkably prescient. The Hunger Games franchise clearly borrowed its premise, while the Ratings War episode of Black Mirror directly references several scenes. Fashion designers, including Paco Rabanne and André Courrèges, contributed futuristic costumes, making it an influential style document as well. Though initially dismissed as exploitation, critics later recognized its biting commentary on media consumption and violence as entertainment. The New York Times eventually revised their initial negative review, calling it a visionary work that anticipated our celebrity-obsessed, violence as entertainment culture with disturbing accuracy. So, which forgotten 60s sci-fi masterpiece are you going to watch first? Drop your choice in the comments below and tell us which film from this era you think most accurately predicted our current technological reality. Was it the reality television bloodsport of The 10th Victim, the emotion-suppressing algorithms of Alphaville, or the book-banning dystopia of Fahrenheit 451? Subscribe now for more journeys through cinema's most overlooked treasures.